All right. I'd like to call to order the June 6, 2023 meeting of the Murrieta City Council. Roll call. Madam City Clerk, would you please determine a quorum?
Councilmember Warren.
Here.
Councilmember Lavelle. Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Here.
Mayor DeForest.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Lavelle with an excused absence.
Thank you so much. Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments on closed session items?
Seeing none.
Fantastic. Thank you. And would you please go over the closed session agenda for today?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council will go into closed session on CS1, Conference with Labor Negotiator. The City Council will conduct closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 with the City Manager, the City Attorney, and the City's negotiators regarding labor negotiations with the associations as listed on the agenda.
Thank you so much. With that, let's go on into closed session, and we will reconvene at 6 p.m. with our regular meeting. Thank you. Good evening. We are reconvening from our June 6, 2023 meeting of closed session, Murrieta City Council. Madam City Attorney, would you please provide our report from closed session?
The City Council met in closed session to confer with its labor negotiator regarding negotiations with 4 units. The council was updated. No reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Madam City Attorney, roll call. Madam City Clerk, would you please determine our quorum, please?
Councilmember Warren.
Here.
Councilmember Lavelle. Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Here.
Mayor DeForest.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Lavelle with an excused absence.
Thank you so much. We're moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. I will have you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you could remain standing, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today, and then if please remain standing for Pastor Lyndon Parsons with Murrieta Springs Seventh-day Adventist Christian Church to lead us in our invocation. Would you please stand? Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Mayor, Council, shall we pray? Our Father in heaven, Lord, we begin this meeting by calling on you to bless our civic leaders. We seek your assistance and wisdom to see the very best way forward for our city, to see the difference between right and wrong. And we ask you, Lord, that you would bless our mayor, our city council members, our city staff, and their families, and most especially our police officers and firefighters who give so much for our sake. And we ask that you bless our citizenry as well. And Lord, we want to thank you in a special way for hearing our plea from last October to send us rain so that our city could prosper. Not only did you do that for us, but you basically erased the California drought altogether. And now to show that it was not a fluke, Lord, we pray that you would make this year something in the same way, that you would send us all the rain that we need for the coming year. And bless our community and keep us free from those who would try to restrict our freedom in state government, all in the name of water conservation. We pray these things in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Lyndon Parsons. Those words were lovely. Thank you. Appreciate you coming here today. All right, moving on to presentations. Tonight we have our military banner retirement. Crystal Aurora, could you please come forward?
Bend this way so everyone can see me. So my name is Crystal Aurora. I'm with the Community Services Department, and I've been given the great pleasure tonight to distribute 5 banners for the biannual retirement of active duty military banners. For those unfamiliar with the program, the active duty military banners are hung twice a year along Washington Avenue in downtown Murrieta around the weeks of Memorial Day and Veterans Day. They fly for 1 year and are then retired and given to the honoree and family here at a city council meeting. This program is a wonderful way for the community to honor and pay tribute to the bravery and commitment of our Murrieta heroes. The families of the most recent round of banners are present here tonight. As the honoree is called, please come up to collect the banner from Miss Roseanne over here and remain here in front of the dais for a quick photo. Without further ado, here are this term's active duty military banner retirees. Nathaniel J. Irick, Marines First Sergeant. Ivan Guardado Covarrubias, Navy Construction Battalion. Justin Larson, Navy Master at Arms. Juan F. Morales, Marine Staff Sergeant. And Blake Ruppel, Army Specialist.
Kim. Yeah, well, we would have all the staff go back. But it's the mayor's call, so I texted the mayor. She needs to let me know.
All right. We thank our military for their service, and we appreciate all of you that were here today. So moving on to the approval of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Seeing none.
Could I call for a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Motion carries unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you so much, Madam City Clerk. Moving on to Department Commission announcements. Madam City Manager,
I have nothing this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you so much. Moving on to our governing body commission and committee reports. City Clerk, would you provide the instructions and the order, please?
Of course. This is the opportunity for city council members to provide a brief report on conferences, seminars, and commission committees and/or board meeting attendance. Report shall not exceed 3 minutes. The city clerk will use a timer. Councilmember Warren will be followed by Councilmember Holliday, Mayor Pro Tem Stone, and Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much.
It's the timer that always gets me. But you're lucky. Tonight, I only have one item. On the 22nd of May, I attended the Riverside County Transportation Commission, known as the RCTC Implementation and Budget Meeting. We're bringing some items forward to the commission meeting, which is next Wednesday. And at this time, I have no further report. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's coming up, Councilman.
It's me.
There it is.
Yesterday, I attended the Western Regional Council of Governments meeting on behalf of the city. We approved the budget going forward for next year and are still trying to fine tune the focus for that group since they got a little scattered over the years. We have a new director who's doing really well and has received high praise. So we hope that continues. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. And Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended RCA yesterday, and we also approved our 23-24 budget. Walker Canyon is officially opened, And on May 16th, our RCA Chair, Natasha Johnson, and Vice Chair Kevin Bash traveled to Washington, D.C., and they met with our community leaders to discuss the increase in funding for the habitat conservation. That concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem. And I was a little bit behind, so you'll see that I attended SCAG, Regional Conference of Governments, and the RCHCA attended the Riverside Habitat. I want to thank the City of Murrieta for hosting our meeting. And we did provide a brochure on the stink net to the city and all the cities because stink net is a huge problem with all the water we had, which was a true blessing. But also it is allowing a lot of invasive species to grow wild and take over other species. So thank you so much for dissipating that all around our city. And I did attend the RTA and according as well, Councilwoman Warren reminded me as well that this is an exciting time to ride the bus because you get to ride the entire summer for 25 cents. So, and that goes to August 30th. So hop on that RTA bus for 25 cents all summer long. So thank you so much, Councilwoman Warren, for reminding me. That was really very positive. Thank you so much. And that concludes, I think, our governing reports and commissions. Moving on to public comments of non-agendized items. Madam City Clerk.
Any person may address the governing bodies on any subject matter pertaining to city business. Normally, no action may be considered or taken by the governing bodies on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Laura Lee.
Good evening. It's Laura Lee Zeller. It's okay. I'm here tonight to ask that the City Council take action in response to the ever-increasing number of red light runners. I'm an elementary school teacher here in Murrieta, and this past Friday, what should have been a day of happiness and excitement turned into a nightmare of disbelief and sorrow. The previous night, 17-year-old Gia Rizzo was killed on her way home from her boyfriend's graduation by someone running a red light. Shockingly, she was the second death in the same day, both due to the same reason, red light runners. I knew Gia since before she started kindergarten. She was what us old-timers would call a spitfire. She was beautiful, passionate, intelligent, and funny. She was a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, and a friend. She had one day left of her junior year and would finally be a senior. Well, Gia's never going to be a senior. She's never going to go to her senior prom or graduate from high school. She'll never go to college, get married, have a career, or children. Her parents will never get to experience anything ever again involving their precious baby girl because someone made the devastating decision to run a red light. Driving today is the most dangerous it's ever been. Impatient and distracted drivers are literally everywhere. More often than not, if you look at the car next to you, you'll see the driver texting or holding the phone to talk. In 2021, the most recent information I could find, 1,109 people were killed and 127,000 were injured in crashes that involved red light running. It has truly become an epidemic. We as a society can't control other people's bad decisions, but we can, to an extent, control our environment. Longer yellow lights or setting the traffic signals so that there is a few-second delay before a green light are just two options that would give waiting drivers a better chance of survival in the very probable event of an oncoming red light runner. There's very little I can do for the Rizzos. I can offer my condolences and try to help them any way that I can. But I wanted to do something more. I wanted to figure out some way that Gia's death would make a difference. So I'm asking you to please take action and don't let another innocent person die because of something you had some control over. Something has to be done to protect the lives of people like Gia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So sorry for your loss. Sorry, our deepest sympathies with you.
Thank you. I have Ernie Sanchez and Madam Mayor Brian Weaver donated his time, if that is okay with you.
That's fine.
We get 6 minutes.
If we get a bike, then that's even better.
I was going to write it down. I wasn't sure when the 3 minutes started. I'm okay.
Probably a better landing this way.
Yes.
At least on his feet.
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, Councilor, Madam Mayor. It's time for my annual Tour de Murrieta report. I am the founder of the Tour de Murrieta, 18 years running. Today is also one of the board members is present with me, and I bought his minutes so that I could speak to you and provide you a little bit of an overview of our event. But before I do that, and in the interest of time, we wanted to call up the Director of Parks and Rec, Brian Ambrose, and donate a bicycle to Parks and Rec. We've done it in the past. They put it to good use, and we wanted to continue to support Parks and Rec by donating this bicycle to Parks and Rec.
Yeah, go for it.
You have 3 minutes to write it back. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your support. Additionally, the Tour de Murrieta is a 2-day event. It used to be 3 days, but over the years, in order to save resources and expenses, it's become a 2-day event. And over the span of 2 years, we have over 100 city volunteers, local community volunteers, but we could never have such an event without the support of Murrieta PD and their senior volunteer program. So today we wanted to make a $500 donation to the Murrieta Police Officers Association, who promised us that the $500 will get to their senior volunteers to support them in their function. So I know Sergeant Tompkins is here, accept the $500. So the event has been happening for 18 years. Many of you, I think everybody here present in the council and Madam Mayor were present. We truly appreciate your support, and so do the participants. We had approximately 3,000 people in attendance over a 2-day period, 800 participants, over 150 12 and under children from the local schools that participated in the bicycle race for kids. The event is free for them. They all receive a medal. The Highway Patrol is on hand, along with Murrieta PD, that provide a little safety discussion on helmet wear and a short inspection of their bicycles, something that is very important, especially at a time where nationwide bicycle crashes are the highest they've been in a decade. Why? People are enjoying riding a bicycle more and more. E-bikes are becoming even more popular with the expensive gas prices. And with that come the possibilities and probabilities of being involved in a bicycle crash. In 2023, the Tour de Murrieta happened or took place on April 1st and 2nd. With your support, in 2022, the council voted to support our signature event with a $5,000 increase. Our signature event became a $10,000 credit that goes to pay for city expenses. Primarily police department expenses. It takes many of them to keep the participants safe over the 2-day event, as well as Public Works, who do a great job assisting us with the barricades that they drop off and our volunteers set up in place. Because of the great job that the police department does, they've received a raise, as I'm sure you know, and effective July 1. That will increase their pay, like it should. As a retired law enforcement officer myself, would agree. However, their estimated expense, or our estimated expenses with Murrieta Police Department for 2024 will be $9,300 alone for the bill for Murrieta PD. Taking all of the $10,000 credit. We recently also met with Public Works, who informed us that they will no longer be able to support our event with their paid, because we do pay for their traffic services due to staffing concerns, and that we would have to seek an estimate from private vendors. We've done that, and they've ranged from $12,000 to $22,000 for our event. In closing, 18 years ago, we started hosting this event. This is a nonprofit event. We don't have paid board members. As you see, we make donations back to the community. This was a vision from, at the time, City Manager Lori Moss, who asked us to host an event here that would bring people to Murrieta, especially to the historic downtown Murrieta that 18 years ago was struggling to attract people to the businesses. We're a blessed community now, and I think with some businessmen that are here would agree that times have changed and our downtown is doing really well, something that we're very happy to see. Our event has increased in popularity. The venues haven't changed. Our 3-day event became a 2-day to save on fees. However, without your consideration of a potential $5,000 increase to our signature event to pay city fee increases, and without perhaps a memorialized discussion, because every couple of years it comes up that Public Works is unable to support our event, continuing this event that I think is a very healthy community lifestyle event would not be able to continue. We don't do it, for the gains of our club. However, we've done it over the years for the gains of the community and because we love bicycle riding. If okay, Madam Mayor, I'd like to leave you a copy of our financials of the event. It will describe the money that comes into the event, the money that goes out, and you'll see that there is a profit of $6,384 at the end of each event. So with that, that's my public comment. Thank you very much for your time, and if okay, I'll walk these up to you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Vincent Lettieri.
Said my name right. Well done. All right. Did it start?
Yep, you're on.
I don't think I'll need 3 minutes, but this is really exciting. This is fun. I feel a little underdressed. Everyone over here looks very nice. My hat and t-shirt I don't think is cutting it. I was encouraged by a gentleman named Alan. I'm hoping one of you knows Alan or some of you know Alan. Otherwise, this is going to be a big practical joke. I own a business right here off of Jefferson and Juniper, a small DIY appliance parts house. I also am a founder of a backpack company. And the backpack company name is Hetopack. We are a buy one, give one backpack company. So for every bag that we sell of these, we give a specifically and intentionally designed bag to the homeless, to the unhoused, to those struggling on the streets. And we need all the help that we can get. This bag is specifically and intentionally designed with a poncho, with specific goods inside. We have a blanket, and we put deodorant, and we put personal goods, and some other fun things in there, like hats and stuff. But yeah, he encouraged me to come and sort of introduce myself and introduce my business, and that's what I'm doing. So I guess the ask is, if you know anybody who is in need of a bag, would you send them my way? Because every time I sell one, I get to give one. So I did good. Minute 30 left if anyone needs it or wants it or whatever. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you guys know Alan?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not a joke.
Yeah.
That concludes public comments, Madam
Giving
Mayor.
him a lot.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the consent calendar. Approval of items 1 through 12. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and may be enacted by one motion and vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless specific items are removed from the consent calendar for separate motions. Are there any requests from any council to pull a consent calendar item for discussion or abstaining a vote? Seeing none. Madam City Clerk, are there any members of the public requesting to speak on a consent calendar item?
Seeing none.
No,
I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
Motion carries unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you so much, Madam City Clerk. Moving on to our public hearings. Our general plan housing element update, 2021-2029. David Chunkaronsu. Oh, passing it over. No. And I even did your name well. Yeah. I've been practicing all day for that. So staff, may we have your report?
We're taking all the seats up here. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Tonight's item number 13, this is City of Murrieta's General Plan Housing Element Update. I'm interim city planner Carl Steele with the city's planning division. Also with me tonight, we have from our consultant team at Kimley Horn, Bryant De La Torre is here, and we have Jared Ramaya, our deputy director with the city. So the city's current housing element was last comprehensively updated in 2013, and the previous 8-year housing cycle has expired. And we've now entered the next 8-year housing cycle, which is 2021 to 2029. The city started the process to update the housing element in the year 2020, and we came before the council for a public workshop, some of you may recall, in 2021. We worked on the past 2 years on reviews with HCD and were able to present the housing element for adoption tonight. So just a brief overview here. We'll talk about the process we went through, our outreach efforts. We'll talk about the contents of the housing element, what we have in there. There's a development code amendment that tags along with this, and then we'll get to our recommendation. So a little overview of the process here, the timeline to walk you through it so we can get through the project here. We initiated it in the summer of 2020 following the completion of the general plan update. We had a public workshop in September of 2020, followed by a community survey that went out that fall. We did planning commission and city council workshops in April and May, right before public review. And we released the draft for public review from the end of May through the end of June in 2021. And we also had another public workshop at that time. So there's a lot of opportunities for input. And then that kind of kicked us into this process of working with HCD on their comments. And as you can see here, we had 5 rounds of reviews with HCD. I would tell you that we've only planned for 2. And most people I've talked to in past experience haven't had more than a couple rounds of reviews, but this is how it's been with HCD with a lot of cities and counties this cycle. So 5 rounds of reviews later, we have a letter from HCD we just received last month that we can move forward with for adoption and certification. So in general, what's the housing element contents? We have an introduction, community profile, housing constraints and resources. A lot of that's just kind of like a lot of information on our community. And then the meat and potatoes is the housing plan and policies. And then we have some important appendices. We have a review of our past performance, and the sites analysis, which we'll spend a bit of time talking about tonight, are some of the main appendices that have a lot of analysis. So our community outreach and engagement. Just to sum up here, the project kicked off during the pandemic, so we weren't able to hold in-person meetings. Initially, we hosted a virtual workshop, and then the second one was both in-person and virtual. The workshop recordings are available on the project webpage, continue to be available for the public. And we provided a presentation on the housing element process, the timeline, and future opportunities for participation, and an overview of the public draft at those workshops. We also had the community online survey I mentioned. You can see what that looks like here on the right-hand side, available in 2020. We received a good response at the time, 129 responses, and some of that data is included in the appendices, and we use that to inform some of the project. The workshops with the Planning Commission and City Council were about 2 years ago, were virtual, but there was also the ability for people to attend in person. We also, again, had a presentation on the overview of the project, summary of the site strategy, kind of dove into that a bit, and how we plan to meet the RHNA, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight, and then discuss the project timeline. And then, of course, we provided the element itself for public review, as mentioned before, and it's continued to be available through the 5 review cycles, and each set of changes has been publicly available for people to review, and it has been out there as we've gone through the process. And then we had 2 comment letters we received officially during public review, and those are included in the appendices for the record. So what are the key contents of the housing element? So there's a lot of data that goes into the first few chapters, as we talked about. So there's demographics, there's a variety of data that we analyze, there's different populations of demographics. We look at special needs groups, seniors, people with disabilities. We look at the income, of course, and then the economics. We look at characteristics of households, whether there's overcrowding or housing problems, and then we look at the housing unit stock and the conditions. The city's in great shape in that regard. We're a relatively young city compared to a lot of communities, so that's not as much of an issue as it could be in other cities. Regarding the housing constraints, we looked at potential barriers to housing. There's land costs, construction costs, of course, land use regulations and standards. We look at it also environmental constraints. And in some cases, these are incorporated into our policy action items. So as council will recall, we're working on objective design standards, for example. That's one of these measures that kind of addresses the housing constraints issue. And then the big one that we spent a significant amount of time working on the last 2 years is affirmatively furthering fair housing, or if you just want to say fair housing, it makes it easier to say, which relates to recent state laws for equal access to housing opportunities. There's an extensive analysis of this in the element. In general, it looks at dissimilarity and segregation, concentrated areas of poverty and affluence, access to transit and education and economic opportunities, sort of like the amenities of our city, and then the risk of potential displacement. So some of the key findings that came out of our analysis, the county listed discriminations against persons with disabilities as a contributing factor. There's a need for more outreach and education regarding fair housing, and the city's a high-income community with lower-income households that could feel pressure to relocate. So related to these items, for example, we have policy action items to do more community meetings. So you'll see in the coming years, we'll be having meetings at the library where we talk about housing issues. And that's another thing we need to do as part of implementing the housing element. So getting to the RENA, I wanted to touch on our allocation. You can see it here. This is, as we talked about when we did the workshop 2 years ago, this is our RENA allocation. These are the units that we have to plan for in the housing element. And we received this from SCAG, from HCD down to SCAG, down to us. These updated numbers here you see on the screen, we've got the 2022 income ranges there for a family of 4. We've already made significant progress on implementing the housing element related to these numbers, and we'll talk about that in a few more slides. So I wanted to provide you a little bit more on the sites analysis before we dive into that. After we get that RENA assigned to us, we do an analysis to line up the sites with the appropriate density and do an evaluation related to uses and looking at the fair housing lens. We get credit for a number of projects in the pipeline, utilizing existing zones, the transit-oriented development area, and our mixed-use zones in the downtown. We currently exceed the number of planned ADUs as well being permitted, which gives us additional units that count. And there's a number of maps in the housing element. This is just kind of the overall map, but you can see here there's sort of a concentration of our housing sites in what's the transit-oriented development area around where the freeway splits, and then there's a number of sites in our downtown specific plan. That's by design. That's where the highest density sites are in the city, so that's where you get a lot of your sort of bang for the buck in a housing element. So a summary, I have a couple tables here, and I don't want to overcomplicate them, but I wanted to give you a little bit of additional information. So looking at the sites analysis, this is a table that's towards the end of it, but it shows the number of units that are planned for in our sites inventory. So one thing, you have to sort of take this not necessarily at its face value. These are units that could happen but may not happen. There's a lot of capacity in the city on sites. So these are sort of theoretically looking at if everybody built out their projects potentially. But there's some of the sites you have to remember in the transit-oriented development area or in the downtown, people have the option to maybe choose to build a commercial building, or they could build an office building rather than building residential. So it's not always guaranteed that these units will get built. But as you can see, we have a potential surplus across all the different income categories. And in this chart, we combine low income and very low income because they both have to be in the highest density sites. So we just put them together. But to give you, probably what more people want to see is where are we at? What's our current status? So this chart gives you the current status. And as you can see in the chart here, you've got the RENA around about the 4th line over. And then the number of units entitled as of the end of last year, and this was in our housing report to council in March as well. So we've entitled a lot of units. That's not fully permitted, but that's entitled that maybe they've been through hearing or they've been approved by our director. And then the number of units permitted, you can see there in the second to last column. Recently, we had the groundbreaking for the Manamos project, so you can see that in the low-income category there, the 139 units. And you can see the remaining RENA towards the end. So we've already knocked out about a third of the RENA in the first 2 years of the cycle, which is phenomenal. So regarding the housing plan, all this data comes together and we put it all together, all the engagement and feedback, all the data that we have, and we do our findings with our constraints analysis and our fair housing analysis, and we come up with our housing plan. So just to walk through the brief overview of the overall goals we have, goal number 1, to provide adequate housing opportunities throughout the city. Goal number 2 is to conserve and enhance the quality of our existing housing in our residential neighborhoods. Housing goal number 3 is to minimize the impact of government constraints on housing production and affordability. 4 is to promote equal housing opportunity for our residents, and 5 is the provision of adequate sites to accommodate the community's housing needs. And some of the key programs we have moving forward in the housing element, we will continue to monitor ADUs and review potential incentive opportunities. We're doing great on permitting ADUs so far, I can say, in the cycle. Reviewing and revising lot standards to increase development feasibility. That's mainly related to our sites in the TOD in the downtown, and we'll have a code amendment coming forward soon with some lot size changes. Utilizing our housing authority funds to support housing. For example, we just closed on the Adams Avenue affordable project last week. Huge investment by our city's housing authority in that, and thanks to the council for that work that we did the last few years. Allow development in the TOD overlay for projects that propose 20% affordable units with the ministerial process. That will be coming back to you as part of the objective design standards, so that's also another key implementation item. And then programs that further fair housing opportunity, and talked about that a little bit before. You'll see more community outreach from our department, more stakeholder meetings. We'll be having meetings with people at the library, things like that. And then continued implementation of our public service programs. For example, council approving the CDBG programs that you approved earlier. Those are things that we have in the housing element, and things that our community services department does for homeless. Those are also items that are sort of included here that are key programs that we get credit for. So lastly, there's also included a development code amendment in the project. And this is to fill a missing gap in the city's zoning related to multifamily housing. So as you can see, if you look on the left-hand side, we currently have MF1, MF2, and MF3. These are our multifamily zones. But there's a missing gap between 18 to 29 dwelling units per acre. We don't have a zone that fits that gap. So the proposal by staff and the ordinance amendment that you have before you is to reorder the MF zones as shown in the table on the right, where we'd have a new MF3 zone filling in that gap, and the old MF3 changes to MF4. So it doesn't actually change any properties, but it provides this new gap being filled in the zones. There's 3 existing MF3 properties, so they would just revert to MF4, just changing the number. It doesn't change anything else in the zone. Making this change provides flexibility in the development code. And HCD actually noticed this gap in their comments early on, and we tried to head this off as a policy action item to just bring it forward and take care of it with the housing element. So that's why we have it here. And we think we'll be doing additional code amendments so we can tweak it if we need to in the future. So to give you just the final sort of next steps tonight, we have adoption of the housing element update itself. And then we need to finalize the objective design standards and that TOD ministerial process. We think we'll be back at the Planning Commission for recommendation on the objective standards in July, and then to City Council with those objective standards in August, I think, as we've talked about before with the council last month. This will allow us to resubmit the complete housing element to HCD for certification in the early fall. So following adoption by council, we can get it certified. So with that, our recommendation is that council open a public hearing and receive testimony, adopt the resolution approving the general plan amendment to adopt the housing element update and find that the project is exempt from CEQA, approve the first reading and introduce the ordinance to provide a multifamily residential zone of 18 to 29 dwelling units per acre, and direct staff to record and file a notice of exemption from CEQA. And if I may, Mayor, We received public comment last night from the Southwest Carpenters Union representative, and then 3 additional emails from union members that have been provided for your consideration by the clerk. And we don't anticipate the need to make any changes to the housing element relating to those comments we've received. And we've provided copies for the record. Thank you. This completes our presentation.
Thank you so much. I know we have our copies up here, so appreciate that. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Any council members' questions? Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Thank you. I have one comment. We do not have an increase in density or an upzone in any of the sites with regards to the general plan housing element.
That's correct, Councilmember Stone. There's no increases in density. We're not upzoning any properties. We planned ahead with the general plan update, and there's no need to do any of those changes.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday.
Regarding the RENA process, so if we make any general plan amendment changes once it's certified before the next cycle starts, we get no credit for that in future RENA numbers, correct?
That one's not working. Councilmember Holliday, we get credit for the units entitled and then permitted within the cycle. So when we report on them. So for example, it will depend on if it occurs within the 2021 to 2029 timeframe. The units don't have to be on housing sites. We have a number of projects, for example, in the pipeline that aren't on housing sites that we'll get credit for. And for example, ADUs might be permitted, on a random lot in the city, but we'll get credit for it. So as long as it occurs within the cycle, which will end in the summer of '29, we can get credit for it as an entitled unit or a permitted unit or a built unit. They actually have 3 categories now in the RENA.
And what happens if we go over our required number?
It really, Brian can probably help a little bit with this, but it helps with some of the state laws that limit our ability to deny certain projects. For example, like an SB 35 project, there's a certain category we're in under state law where if somebody comes in with a certain type of affordable project, we have to approve it a certain way. But it can kick us into a different category if we have met our RENA. There's different reports that the state does over time, and certain cities get moved into sort of different categories. So that would help us. I think there's a number of other things the state's starting to do with that. There's a pro-housing city designation I know that some cities are looking at. I think only like 12 cities have done that yet. But those are things that can factor in if you want to go for one of those designations. And that can line you up for grants, for example, like with HCD, where if you're considered a pro-housing city, you might be only up against the other pro-housing cities to get certain types of grants. It seems like HCD is starting to dangle that. But we haven't seen those grants come out yet.
And if we exceed those numbers, do we get any credit for that in the next cycle?
No, Councilmember Holliday, no. It's you just get your numbers reset in the next cycle. So when we hit 2029, everything will reset and we'll get a new RENA of some sort.
Okay, because I have a conversation coming up with our senator on that very issue to have some changes in the RENA laws to where if we do exceed our number, we do get credit for that going forward, which make our job a little bit easier.
Sounds like a good idea.
Thank you.
Councilmember Warren.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very extensive report. I know how long and hard you guys have worked on this to get this approved, certified. I have a question for you. No properties or no areas. Zoning has not been changed anywhere, correct? Except adding that one to fix that gap. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councilmember Warren. We haven't changed any zoning since we did the general plan update in 2020. When we did add, that was before your time.
Yeah.
A number of the council, I think none of the council members here were here for that item. Our city manager was here. We did add a lot of units on purpose in the general plan update because we were changing some office areas to residential at at residents' requests
Okay.
in those parts of the city. We also added a lot of units in the downtown specific plan when we did the downtown specific plan, which was from 2014 to 2017. And that was also at a lot of the residents' requests in the downtown to increase, get more people in the downtown. So we've benefited from that in this housing cycle. There was a lot of units already baked into the plan, if you will. So yeah, there's no need to add additional units at this time. We have plenty of units.
Thank you. I just thought it was important that the public heard that from you, so I do appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move to open our public hearing. Madam City Clerk, is there any public testimony regarding this item?
Seeing none, and I would like to state for the record that my office did receive the 4 public comments that Mr. Stile provided, and that they are available for public review.
Thank you so much, Madam City Clerk. We'll close the public hearing. And we will open, any council member would like to further discuss this item? Seeing no one, I would just like to say thank you so much. 5 rounds and going, so much appreciated your hard work and dedication, and should I say perseverance on this. So hopefully we'll get this to the finish line and appreciate everything that you guys have done. So thank you so much for working on this. All right, can I call for a motion? It's already happening.
Motion carries unanimously 4-0, which, as recommended by staff, which also includes the first reading to introduce ordinance number 591-23, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Murrieta, amending Title 16 of the Murrieta Municipal Code to revise the city's development code to provide a multifamily residential zone of 18-29 dwelling units per acre related to sections 16.06 and 16.08.
Thank you so much, Madam City Clerk. You said that so eloquently. Moving on to discussion, adoption of the fiscal year 2023, 2024, and 2024-2025 operating budget. Javier Carcamo, our Finance Director.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and members of the community. Javier Carcamo, Director of Finance, and as usual and always, when we come to you with the budget, with me is also our Finance Manager, Jennifer Terry. So the item before you tonight is the proposed operating budget for fiscal year 23-24 and fiscal year 24-25. Since the workshop, we have made final refinements to the budget. So tonight's presentation includes an overview of the significant changes as well as some of the budget refinements that we did. We'll look at, present to you the final revenue and expenditures forecast. We'll provide you a brief general fund and Measure T long-term forecast. And lastly, we'll take a look at also the operating and sustainability reserves. Tonight's action also includes the Fire District's preliminary operating budget for approval consideration, and the final adoption for the Fire District budget is scheduled for June 20th. The proposed spending plan for the next 2 years is balanced, which means that our current revenues will support and be sufficient to cover the operating expenditures. A balanced budget preserves the funding for vital community services and also maintains the, and in some cases, enhance the services levels. The proposed budget includes also additions to the city's workforce. We're adding some critical positions for the next 2 years. And lastly, the budget, the proposed operating budget also increases the city's operating reserve balance to 30%. With that being said, I will go ahead and turn the presentation over to Jennifer Terry to provide an update to you, City Council, on the final budget figures.
Thank you, Javier. As Javier mentioned, we'll be going over the two-year biannual budget. The development of the biannual budget started approximately 6 months ago with oversight by the city manager and input from the departments and city council. A budget workshop was held on May 2nd to present the draft budget to the council and the public. In this presentation, I'll go over the changes made to the draft budget since the workshop, then review the final proposed budgets. We'll also talk about significant changes since the workshop. The reserves are proposed as part of this biennial budget. The amounts and purposes will also be discussed towards the end of the presentation. And finally, I'll go over the recommended actions for this item and future actions related to the operating budget. At the workshop, the fiscal year 23-24 revenue budget was presented as $183.2 million, and the expenditure budget was $168.5 million. The following year was a revenue of $191 million and expenditures of approximately $178 million. Further refinements were made to the draft budgets for fiscal year 23-24. The total changes resulted in an increase of revenue of $1,800,000 and increases in expenditures of $4 million. The second year of the budget had revenue increases of $1.3 million and expenditures of $2.7 million. Some of the significant changes were increases in operating transfers to the library, the community services zones, and the landscape and lighting districts. Allocation of personnel costs to community services district recreation, lighting and landscape districts, and the CSD zones. Also, budgets were added to comply with new accounting standards that dictate the city accounts for revenues and expenditures in the operating budget collected on behalf of the bonded community facilities districts, also known as CFDs or Mello-Roos districts. Previously, the expenses for these for these expenses and special tax revenues for these districts were recorded only on the balance sheet. These additions affect both revenues and expenditures in both fiscal years. A complete list of the attachments is included with the agenda report as attachment 5. Even with these changes, the budget remains balanced. The fiscal year 23-24 budget, revenue budget is $185.1 million with an expenditure budget of $172.6 million. I would like to point out that in the all other funds column, there is a contribution to unassigned fund balance of $7.9 million. This contribution is attributed to collecting revenue for funds that will be later used for future CIP projects. You'll see a similar contribution to unassigned fund balance on the next slide as well for the same purpose. For fiscal year 24-25, the revenue budget is increasing by 3.9% in revenue and 4.7% on the expenditure side. The total revenue is $192.4 million and the expenditures $180.7 million. The city has a long-term forecasting model that was updated with the proposed budgets. Fiscal years future years, fiscal year 25, 26, and beyond are projected based on a number of assumptions. A few examples of those assumptions include how strong we're projecting the economy to be, reserve fund levels, consumer price index annual projections, pension rates, and a standard growth rate in our workforce. This chart reflects both the general fund and Measure T revenues and expenditures combined. Looking forward to, so it goes from fiscal year 17 looking into fiscal year 30. As you can see, in the past few years, revenues have exceeded expenditures, which has resulted in a growing unassigned fund balance for both Measure T and general fund. I'll discuss the proposed use of some of those unassigned fund balances in the next few slides. According to our forecast, the future year revenues and projections, according to our forecast, the future year revenues are projected to keep pace with expenditures. One thing this projection does not take into consideration is construction of any new development projects beyond fiscal year 25. The estimated ending fund balance for general fund in the first year is approximately $6.5 million, and Measure T is $1.5 million, for a total of $8.1 million. In the first year of the biannual budget, we are proposing to set aside $8.6 million from the general fund, $18.6 million from the general fund and $14.3 million from Measure T, for a total of $33 million. The amount in the right-hand column takes into consideration not only the transfers to reserves, but also the net between revenue and expenditures and any capital outlay that is being proposed in the CIP budget. In the second year of the proposed budget, the combined unassigned fund balance grows slightly by $1.7 million, and the estimated ending fund balance for general fund is $6.1 million, and Measure T with $3.7 million. This slide shows the current and projected reserve levels for fiscal year 23-24. Funding the operating reserve at 30% has been a long-term goal for both the City Council and the City Manager. Our current unassigned fund balance levels have afforded us to finally do so. We are proposing to increase the operating reserves to 30% from our current levels of 25%. The general fund will contribute $3.6 million, and Measure T will contribute $3.4 million. Measure T's contribution brings its own fund, as well as the fire district, the CSD, and library funds, all up to the 30% level. The estimated ending operating reserves for the 5 major funds is $35.1 million. In addition to increasing the operating reserves, we're proposing to establish, increase, or replenish certain sustainability reserves, continue funding pension and other post-retirement benefit trusts, and set aside funds for ongoing labor negotiations. The general fund will be using $15 million in unassigned fund balance, and Measure T will use $10.9 million to fund the sustainability reserves. Some of the purposes for these reserves include adding to our fleet replacements for both the city and public safety, replacement of aging facilities and infrastructure at the fire stations, the parks, and the library. A complete list of the recommended set-aside amounts and the specific purposes is included in the agenda report as attachment 6. In the second year of the budget, we're proposing to maintain the 30% reserve levels with $1.4 million contributed combined with general fund and Measure T. So that would give us a total operating reserve ending balance of $36.6 million. And our recommended actions tonight include adopting the proposed resolution to approve the fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25 operating budgets, approve the fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25 preliminary operating budget for the Murrieta Fire District, and set June 20th as the date of the public hearing to adopt the final budget. And the final recommendation is to approve the schedule of authorized positions. Future actions include holding that or conducting that public hearing for adopting the fire district budget and quarterly budget updates as we have done in the past. This concludes our presentation. We're available if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Appreciate your hard work and dedication to this difficult, large budget because we are a full-service city, and it puts a lot of caveats into that. So thank you so much, and thank you to all city staff that's here because I know you started this 6 months ago. So thank you for providing all the input as well to move this budget forward. So I'll take any public comments.
Seeing none.
Thank you so much, and I'll take council members' questions and comments for discussion. And do we have any?
I don't know, we didn't go back in there.
We didn't go back in there. Any comments? Councilmember Holliday.
Yeah, I just want to echo the mayor's comments. You guys do an amazing job. I know Javier always gets questions when the check register comes out, and I appreciate the quick replies to those. Just getting up to speed. Sometimes the memos aren't clear enough for me to, I haven't been looking at those long enough to say, oh yeah, I remember what that is. So I'm saving all those, by the way, so the next time they come up, I won't have to ask again. Of course I am.
Okay.
But you guys do an amazing job. I know all of staff inputs everything to you, and then you have to put it all together into the presentation you give us. Just job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you for tonight's reading lesson. I appreciate it. Excellent, as always. Getting these numbers to balance and to get our reserves to 30% is an amazing job. I just want to say thank you to you, your staff, the entire team of the city. It takes a village to make this happen, and you made it happen. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
I just concur with my fellow colleagues. So great job, and thank you for your hard work.
All right. Let's call for a motion and a second. And you guys can get out of the hot seat.
Motion carries unanimously 4-0.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, and thank you. I just want to take just a minute to really appreciate and recognize the work of the entire team, the budget team, but also primarily Jennifer. She's been working on this for the last 6-7 months. As you guys stated, it's not an easy task to do a one-year budget. Can think about 2-year budget. So really appreciate her diligent work. She's been coordinating this and working with our city staff very closely. So definitely it's been a team effort. But thank you, Jennifer. Really appreciate that. And also thank you to our city manager for her guidance and support during the last 6-7 months as well. It hasn't been easy, but her support has been really appreciated to the entire team. So thank you as well.
Thank you so much. All right. Moving on to governing board announcements. I see, Madam City Clerk, we have Councilmember Warren to start us off.
Yes,
always
and
get
that's
to
on
go
governing
first.
body announcements.
Oh, what did I say?
I don't know.
Oh, governing board.
board.
Oops, governing body, excuse me.
It's been a busy month. I've had busier. There's a lot of meetings going on. I want to talk about a couple of them. One of them, I really want to talk about the tour that we took at Murrieta Hot Springs Resort. What a great facility this is going to be. I cannot wait. I am amazed at what they've already accomplished, and when they open, it's going to be standing room only. I can only tell you that because I think all of us will be there first if we can beat Scott Agajanian. I'm not sure. I didn't think so. Also, if you haven't ever heard about the Student of the Year Awards or the Student of the Month Awards, it is a wonderful program that recognizes students in all of our schools, high schools, and it is an honor to represent the city when the mayor cannot attend, and I get to do it for her. Just to hear these student stories is just heartfelt, and they're so dedicated to where they've come from to where they're going to. And it's just an honor for our city to be a part of that, and I'm really grateful for that. Other than that, then the Murrieta Police Department Awards Ceremony is always a very top one on my list. Great job to the chief and everybody that received awards this year, very deserving. And we have such an awesome fire and police department. I just couldn't ask anything more. So thank you so very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Warren. And now we're moving on to Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you. Didn't have much going on except for the 20 things that are on my list, so I'm not going to read them all. A couple of them, the Medical Leaders Luncheon was the first one I attended for that over at Loma Linda. And since Councilman Lavelle's not here, I'm going to give a shout out about that. It's all medical leaders in the area come to that and share what's going on and new and exciting things. We have a nursing school that's going to be opening or is just opened in Murrieta. So I was excited to see that. We are still moving forward with the Santa Stops discussion with Brian Ambrose and staff and working out the details for that. Still need some more volunteers, so if you haven't volunteered and would like to do that, go to the Facebook Santa Stops page, or you can call me directly and I'll get your name on the list and we'll make that happen. Along with the Police Department Awards, which was a great ceremony, Chief. Well done. You always do a great job. And then several of us, Councilwoman Stone and Councilmember Lavelle and I attended the Murrieta Mesa graduation ceremonies. It's the only one council was invited to. I'm not sure why. They had all 3 high school graduations on the same day at the same time. So I'm not sure of the wisdom in that, but we attended that one and met the principal and encouraged the school districts and school staff to interact more with the city so we can all be on the same page and make the city better. And he seemed to be receptive to that. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much. Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think you'll see my report, which you can review on the website. The only thing that I'm going to highlight is ICSC. I want to thank our entire staff for a wonderful day and a half of, I don't know how many meetings that we had, but it started at 8 o'clock in the morning and it didn't end till 10 o'clock at night. And I want to thank our city manager, our assistant city manager, and the entire staff for all the meetings. It was a wonderful experience. And there's our cute little picture in Patrick from the Murrieta Wildomar Chamber of Commerce. Listen, I always get excited when you put me in front of businesses that I think that want to come to Murrieta. So great job, everybody. That concludes my report.
Thank you so much, and I think I have that picture, so on mine as well. You could review the various multiple pages that I attended, and ICSC was great fun. Also prepared for filming the State of the City. Everyone, it is coming up on June 15th. So I hope to see everyone there. Going back, it was fun. My family got to attend with me and both grandmas the Memorial Day celebration, which was beautiful. And I got to cut the ribbon for the Aldi, and Councilmember Holliday attended with me. Also, Lori's picture as well. And then there's a picture of us all in hard hats and beautiful vests. at the Murrieta Hot Springs Resort. So really excited about that opening. And as you can see, they've already named a building after Mayor Pro Tem. And it happens to be the really nice building, which I hope to stay in one time. So anyway, yeah, quite a lot of fun. That is going to be absolutely beautiful. We are so excited for Murrieta Hot Springs to come to our city and to be a premier destination. So that is all I have for tonight. Please feel free. Oh, yes, some more pictures. And that was Michelle's Place, Butterflies and Boots, which was a great event held at Peltzer's Winery, raised money for Michelle's Place, which is one of our signature events. So that was fantastic. Thank you, Madam City Clerk, for putting all my pictures together and letting me share all the fun that we have been having at all these great places. So if you need to reach me, there's my cell and my phone number, and that will be also available on the website. Thank you so much. Council members request to add items to future agendas. Now is the time for council members to request to add future items to agendas. There will be no discussion on the request. A brief explanation on the request may be given. The merit of the item being requested may not be discussed or debated. Now there are any requests from my colleagues to bring anything forward. I would like to start us off by maybe I'd like to start us off. Yes, it's here. Oh, I did know that we did have a speaker on the Tour de Murrieta. I would like if we could direct staff into looking into the Tour de Murrieta. I know it is a signature event for us, but if we could specifically with emphasis in the public's work area, if we could have direction to have staff look into that. Do I have consensus on that from my fellow colleagues?
Yes.
Thank you so much. And any other, seeing none? I will not adjourn the meeting, but we will return to closed session for further discussion. So we will report back out here at the end of closed session whenever that may be. So thank you so much, and we will be back. The Murrieta City Council, June 6, 2023 meeting. Announcement of closed session action items. Madam City Attorney, please provide a report of our closed session items.
The City Council met again on item CS1 to confer with its labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The council was updated, no reportable action. Thank you.
Madam City Clerk, do we need to do roll call again?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure. So, all right, now moving on to the best part. Let's be done with this meeting and let's adjourn again. All right, thank you so much for your time this evening. Greatly appreciated. Thank you for being here for us.
I'm ready.
Oh, bye.
Good.